Okay, today we'll be talking about the impact of self-determination strategies on secondary transition planning. We're going to deal with the situation of helping our students to make choices for themselves. That's what we'll be dealing with. Let's go on to the research. So the Action Research Project focuses on empowering high school students in their final year of school before they graduate. And so we want to teach them self-determination strategies to give them some focus, give them some goals that they need to reach. We want them to make informed decisions, okay? The research says that only 35% of people with disabilities have full or part-time employment as compared to 78% of their non-disabled peers. That's from a 2004 Harris survey. The high school dropout rates for people with disabilities are twice as likely to drop out of high school as their peers. The employment for out-of-school adolescents with disabilities, only 4 out of 10 are employed compared to 63% of their non-disabled peers, right? So that's from a Wave 2 National Longitudinal Transition Study. So we have to improve as educators. We must find opportunities to enhance these outcomes, okay? Transition is a highly individualized process. So it's important that we really have conversations with students and teach students how to create these pathways, okay? So let's look at the reason why we're doing this research. So the issue is there's a lack of support for high school graduates with disabilities in planning their post-secondary goals. The challenge is that many face a lack of direction and belonging in pursuing higher education. So the focus is on finding effective methods to facilitate their transition. Okay, so we have to ignite students' enthusiasm for the upcoming chapters of their lives. They have many obstacles, these students with disabilities. They have struggles. They really can't see success for themselves overall without us as educators giving them the support they need to create new pathways for success. All right, so the question is, can self-determination activities lead to a better life and empowerment for students? And it absolutely can. Let's look at the participants. We have 5 participants, 4 boys and 1 girl, all age 18. 2 of these students qualified for free or reduced lunch, and they received instruction during their study skills class. And so there was a structured timeline for completing this instruction. So they had a 5-week period in which to complete various activities on self-determination, okay? And it was very, very exciting. So let's look at the data collection tools. We used parent questionnaires, pre and post self-determination surveys where they were surveyed before instruction and after. And so we were able to measure their gains. And also the study habits survey, we had transition skills surveys, student interviews, and PowerPoint projects, okay? So notice there are lots of surveys because we want to get individualized feedback to tailor to each student so that they can be successful, okay? Success looks different for every student. So we want to make sure every student has an opportunity to be successful. All right, so let's get into the data. What does the data say? All right, and so again, this is an individualized process, and that's why you see a lot of student interviews, you see a lot of surveys, and so really a lot of the research was based upon ongoing conversations with students, right? So we have to figure out, okay, what do you want to do? How do I help you to facilitate getting there? This is an individualized process, right? So let's look at the data collection. Let's look at what happened and the results of that data. Okay, only 1 parent returned the parent questionnaire that was used, and so this parent communicated concerns about their child attending college far from home. So even though I only had 1 student return this questionnaire, it was really helpful for me and gave me insight as to the student having anxieties about moving far from home for college, and the parent really having some anxiety about that as well. So the comforting part of that, in knowing this, is that the parent also had a job which required her to go back and forth to the town that this student was going to attend college. So that gave that student a little bit of comfort. Okay. Also, the student interviews reveal diverse education plans. Not every student wanted to go to college. In fact, 3 out of my 5 students that participated wanted to go to college, and the other 2 wanted to go to trade school. One wanted to be a welder, and the other student wanted to be a cosmetologist. She wanted to go to cosmetology school. So we have to look at what pathways can we open up for each of these students to gain success. So let's look at the transition skills survey. We know that transition is a required part excuse me, of the IEP or the career aspirations. We also know that it helps us to individualize goals for each student. All right. And so in doing this, we were able to personalize various short-term and long-term goals. All right. So we personalized those tasks for each student. And we were also able to define some actionable goals that the student can act on in the immediate future. Right. So one kid decided to call his university of choice to schedule a college visit. Well, that's something that student could do that week, right? So that was an immediate actionable goal that kid was able to attain. And there's a little bit of psychology in there for the reason, that's the reason why I did that a little bit. I wanted to make him feel encouraged. And so he became excited about his, upcoming visit to Ruston. So that was cool. So let's move on to the PowerPoint project. So each of these kids had to participate in a PowerPoint project where for each domain, and you see domains in yellow, we did some progress monitoring on their PowerPoints. And so they had the domains of setting goals and objectives. That was one PowerPoint. Identifying post-high school education opportunities. They also had to identify their career goals and personal interests. They had to identify their accessibility of services, which that was new for most of them. And also they needed to assess whether or not they had accommodations or could access accommodations and disability support, whether it was in their trade school or in the university setting. So they were able to set goals and explore educational opportunities in this way. And so as you can see, most students, they at least got 11 out of 12, which is about 91% of the rubric. The only thing that was a recurring issue was grammar. And as we know, grammar has nothing to do with self-determination. It was just something I put for note. But most students did very well on their PowerPoint projects, and they were able to identify each of these domains. So I was really proud of them for that. They really performed very well. I was very proud of them. And so again, grammar just was a recurring theme. It was a recurring thing that every student had issues with. So. But that's neither here nor there. Moving on, let's look at the pre versus post self-determination survey. So we measured each student's confidence level and self-determining skills. And so basically each question, there were 10 questions that I gave them before instruction, started in this area, and after instruction. And so basically you got up to 3 points if you had a lot of confidence that you could do X, Y, Z. 2 points if you had some struggles, and 1 point if you had no confidence and you really needed someone to help you in each area. So most of the students for their pre-self-determination survey, not most, really all of them, had a lower score before instruction versus after instruction. So you can see my student 1 there, he gained 5 points. So he had a 24 out of 30, and then after instruction, he had a 29 out of 30. So that means he gained some confidence there in his abilities. And as you can see, every student made gains. Student 1 made a gain of 5 points, student 2, 6 points, student 3, 1 point, student 4 made a gain of 8 points, and student 5 made a gain of 4 points. So every student made gain. There was some significant growth in communication and self-advocacy. So that was where students experienced the most growth and confidence. And that's what it's about after all. It's about confidence. All right. So the next tool we used was the study habits survey. So the study habits survey basically was a gauge of how motivated students were to pass their coursework for graduation. And so we looked at, student preferences, we looked at their weekday habits, study techniques, and so they were all over the place. Some students preferred, well, most students actually, 4 out of 5 students preferred to study by themselves. And there was one that studied according to a schedule. He was a real regimented student. As far as weekday habits, most students some students preferred to study 1 to 2 hours a week. Other students preferred to study just when they had to. They had no set schedule. So they were just across the board in this area. So there were diverse habits. And also we were able to talk about distractions, what really distracts you when you're studying and what helps you to overcome those distractions. So there were varied motivation levels for the study habits survey. Most students, I want to say 3 out of 5 students, were only motivated to study based upon the test due date. So if you have a test on Friday, they're going to just try to knock out studying Thursday night. So that was their study habits. And then the other 2 actually preferred to study depending on the subject. All right. So here's our conclusion. Teaching self-determination strategies is crucial for positive outcomes for students with disabilities. It is imperative to teach self-determination strategies. Students must be included in IEP planning, and they must be taught how to advocate for themselves to improve results for post-graduation. Okay? Students with disabilities are less likely to gain employment. The research shows that time and time again. Teaching self-determination bridges this gap between disabled students, not disabled students, but students with disabilities having a job versus students without disabilities, right? So there is a gap, okay? There's a gap of about 24% gap between students with disabilities and without gaining employment. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to teach these self-determination skills for our kids, okay? So this is my little mini documentary. I'm so proud of it. My husband and I put this together. If you want more information on self-determination, just click the link or click this little video and watch this video. I'd really be honored. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great day. Okay.